Hello. Hello, hello, and welcome to the Business of Beauty Global Forum 2025. I'm Imran Ahmed, founder and CEO of the Business of Fashion.
And I'm Priya Rao, executive editor of the Business of Beauty.
We are absolutely thrilled to be here again, broadcasting live from beautiful Stanley Ranch in Napa Valley, California. A special welcome to all of you, thousands of BOF professional members watching in more than 100 countries around the world. Please take some time to introduce yourselves in the chat window and let us know where in the world you are joining from today.
Over the next 2 days here on our main stage, you will meet the beauty and wellness leaders, founders, and disruptors who are at the cutting edge of change, who are building purpose-driven pioneering companies, who are blazing their own trails and embedding values into their businesses, and who are handling unprecedented volatility with resilience and agility.
Now, in its third year, our global gathering has become a conduit for discussion and innovation. It is a space where voices from across the global industry challenge each other, learn from one another, and gain focus and clarity about where we are now and where we are headed. We bring together people from different corners of the world and make space for unexpected topics and break the mold of what a beauty conference should be. This year's Global Forum takes place at an exceptionally challenging time for the global economy. Geopolitical tensions are boiling over into trade wars. Customers are ever more discerning about where they spend their money. New technologies powered by artificial intelligence are changing the way beauty companies bring products to market. Meanwhile, the looming climate crisis means we are all experiencing the impact of this catastrophic change.
We will be diving into all of these topics, on stage and off. Our programming starts early in the mornings and goes late into the nights. We hope that you take advantage of everything from our knowledge breakfasts and content sessions, as well as our programming of wellness dinners and community events, helping you build new relationships and bridge divides in a way only BOF can do.
It's our hope that you will take away something new and unexpected during every moment you are here with us. Our global community also extends to all of you watching on our live stream. Over the next few days, members of the BOF team will be joining the chat and sharing helpful information and links about our speakers and the topics we are discussing here on stage. And for everyone, please share your photos, screenshots, and favorite moments using the hashtag BOFBeauty. Finally, all of this is only possible with the support of our partners, Front Row, Unilever Prestige, Citi, McKinsey & Company, Getty Images, and Stanley Ranch, as well as our awards partners, L'Oreal Group and Sephora. Now, it's time to get started.
During our 3 carefully curated content sessions, we'll journey together to learn about the beauty industry's most pressing concerns and biggest opportunities. Tomorrow, in session 2, we'll go inside the industry with the executives driving growth and innovation and speak to the change agents, challenging norms and exploring connection in the age of disruption during session 3. But this afternoon, we begin with session 1, our place in culture.
Our industry, much like our wider world, is in flux. It's expanding to fit new definitions of beauty and to include new voices and lifestyles. But as you all know, it's not without growing pains. Today, we are excited to unveil the 2nd edition of the State of Fashion Beauty Report, created by our data and advisory team, BOF Insights, in partnership with McKinsey & Company. Everyone here received a printed copy in your welcome bags. We have identified 5 key imperatives for the global beauty industry and provided insights to power growth in a cooling market.
To explore these themes, I'm delighted to welcome Christy Weaver, partner at McKinsey, to join me to walk through some of the report. In this year's edition, we reveal that the beauty industry's era of effortless growth is cooling to a new reality, causing all businesses to rethink and to recalibrate. So let's start by the numbers. The global beauty industry by 2030 is supposed to be $590 billion, an incredible feat. But growth is slowing. The compound annual growth rate from 2024 to 2030 was 5%, down from 7% just a few years before. There are spots of growth, fragrance being one of them, as we see that they are seeing a wide range of new customers as well as a wave of premiumization. E-commerce also continues to grow, being a lever that customers can use to find their favorite products and also their favorite brands. They're discovering things in marketplaces, TikTok Shop, all sorts of news places besides just the physical store. These are the 5 themes that we hotly debated between the BOF team and as well as the McKinsey team. The fragmenting customer, true value, beyond the founder, marketing New Balance Act, and channels at a crossroad. Looking deeper at the numbers, we need to think about what's driving change in the industry. These are the themes that will kind of define what we're expecting in the next few years. I'd love to turn it over to Christy.
Great. Thanks so much, Priya. Thank you all for listening today. I'm going to start with the first theme, which is the fragmenting consumer. To capture growth, brands are going to need to think about a different way to work across the world. Let me give you a few examples of the differences that we're seeing across countries in the new report. For instance, in the US, we are seeing a continued blurring of beauty and wellness. In fact, 44% of consumers now define beauty as both mind and body, which is higher than ever before. Compare and contrast that to China, where despite challenges over the past couple years, we're now seeing a new appetite to try brands, with 50% of consumers trying a new brand every 3 months. This is driving an increase in the competitiveness in the market as Chinese brands continue to win, specifically propelled by the Gen Z. Then we go to the Middle East, where we're seeing tremendous growth in the region, driven by a lot of the wealth, both with locals and expats, and this is creating a new definition of luxury. 90% of consumers in the Middle East believe that brands are affordable. This is much more than any other country that we researched in the report, and 1 out of every 4 have bought a brand with a luxury positioning. And finally, we turn to India, which will also see strong growth. This is aided by GDP per capita, and in India, we're seeing 60% of consumers increase their frequency of purchase in the last year. So what does this mean? This means that sub-market nuance matters. It means that hyper-localization will be key. And as we think about for brands and for retailers in the audience, you're going to need to continue to go beyond the traditional demographic way of thinking about in the specific country way of thinking about the world into actual attitudes and needs in a more nuanced way. Our second theme is called true value. Now, value has always been an important part of the beauty industry, and as Imran shared, even more now than ever before. We've seen mass and prestige gain a tremendous amount of ground in the last 5 years, up 5 percentage points, specifically in mass makeup and skin. This is being driven by challenger brands, being driven by better efficacy than ever before, and also being driven by the fact that mass and prestige brands is the entry choice for Gen Z and for men. But we know that consumers shop the price range, and I think this chart illustrates it. In our research, 50% of consumers shop price tiers, and this is a skincare example, which basically shows on one axis, consumers might be willing to save in the lip and cleanser categories, where on the other side, consumers are willing to splurge in serums and moisturizers. So what does this mean? I think for brands, it means that everyone needs a value strategy or a value for money strategy. And for retailers, I think it means perhaps diversified assortment and better understanding of where consumers are willing to trade up and where consumers are willing to trade down. Priya, back to you for the third theme.
The third theme is beyond the founder. Probably one of the biggest stories of the last decade is how celebrity, influencers, and industry darlings drove the beauty industry. From everyone like Hailey Bieber and Rhode and Emily Weiss and Glossier to Huda Beauty and Huda Kattan. Now, what we've seen is the flood of brands hitting the market, all with their own unique point of view. But many of these founders have struggled to take their businesses to a long-term point of view. Today's founders' charisma doesn't necessarily lead to long-term growth. What we found in our report is that when we asked global consumers what drives loyalty, only 5% said the founder. Quality, long-lasting results, and overall experience mattered much, much more. Founders can kickstart awareness, but it is no longer a defensible moat. In today's saturated market, hype does not mean lasting relevance. Our next theme is marketing's new balancing act. What we found here is that marketing, as you all know, is a very challenging thing. The growth levers for performance marketing no longer apply and no longer land in the way that they used to. So brands need to think about being more creative, bolder, more expression-led when they're talking to their customers. On one hand, in-store marketing is reigning supreme. 39% of global consumers say that physical stores is where they discover brands, discover products. On the flip, influencers are losing relevance. That's because customers are becoming more discerning. They are understanding that they have more education sometimes than influencers themselves, and they also are a little bit skeptical about why an influencer may be partnering with a brand. When you think about the right marketing mix, of course it's performance and of course it's brand. Some brands are doing this particularly well. One that we kind of called out in the report is Vacation, who has taken the SPF category and kind of leaned into this whole summer lifestyle culture. They've basically become the Margaritaville of beauty. Our next theme is channels at a crossroads. As we mentioned earlier, the channel landscape is changing. Customers are looking for convenience and speed, and they're also finding their favorite brands and products almost everywhere. Brand exclusives are really, really hard to get, unless they're Sephora, and that doesn't necessarily translate to not being able to find it on marketplaces or online stores as well. Social selling has also become increasingly important. TikTok is the new place that Gen Z and Gen Alpha is buying. So how do you kind of balance all of these different stores and all of these different experiences? Retailers need to work harder, not just on brand assortment and not just on marketing, but overall brand experience. Ulta, of course, in the recent example, has said they're bringing in-store events back to their stores. They're bringing much more tutorials, influencers, people to bring people back into the stores, especially in the middle market. So that's one thing that we've seen is that retailers need to work harder to get these people back into stores to fight against the convenience and speed that online marketplaces really offer.
So maybe in conclusion, we also wanted to share a bit of a recap of the executive priorities that surface in this year's survey. We surveyed over 100 executives and we had dozens of interviews, and these are the things that surface, many of which Priya and I have touched on in the report. The first is around value and the importance of value. We also see the importance of AI, especially as marketing costs have skyrocketed as a way to think about content creation and product development in a different way. The role of innovation and the importance of it in driving volume growth. And lastly, the importance of the 45+ consumer. There's also lots of things on executives' minds that are worrisome. Imran hit many of them in his opening. Consumer sentiment is plummeting. We have geopolitical instability, inflation, potential trade wars, and perhaps increased competition. So what does this all mean? Well, tomorrow we would invite you to join us for a more detailed deep dive into the report and a Q&A breakfast at 9 a.m. at the Garden House.
We look forward to seeing you guys there.
Thank you so much.
Now it's time to turn our attention to global retail. Finding ways to make every retail experience feel curated is no small task, especially as customers have more choice than ever. As we've seen, the global economy and global consumer may be slowing their growth, and especially in the US, we're seeing reduced consumption. But there are pockets of growth, specifically in Europe and the UK, and also in India. So what do we think we should do? Bring some of the best retailers making a local and personalized impact on the global forum stage. I'd like to welcome Andy Lightfoot of the fast-growing British beauty retailer Space NK, and Anshit Nair, Executive Director and CEO of India's Nykaa Beauty. Please welcome Andy and Anshit to the stage.
Thank you.
Thank you for both being here. It's exciting to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Thank you very much.
So I think, Anshit, I'd love to start with you. We just heard from our global report that India is a pocket of growth. And obviously, people are very excited about what India is bringing to the world. So many brands have launched in India recently. But I'm wondering, how you think that the local retailers are really driving this growth. How is Nykaa preparing for new brands to be imported there and homegrown brands to really succeed?
Yeah, great. So firstly, I just want to say thank you, Priya and Imran, for having us. Last year was my first year, and it's such an incredible event. Also, thank you for putting this image on the back. I made sure we sent it, and I'm glad you managed to put it up on the screen so everyone can see. Look, I think I really appreciate the report that McKinsey put together. But I will say that it does sound like a lot of doom and gloom, and I'm very lucky and very happy to say that India actually truly is a bright spot in what is a very volatile market currently. And the reason is just because we are much earlier in our beauty journey as a country than the more developed markets that were also presented in the presentation. So India today has some of the lowest consumption of beauty. It has some of the lowest penetration of beauty. So there is a tremendous amount of runway for us to go. And I think what's allowed Nykaa to succeed is that India is a very unique market in the sense that the consumers are very different from what you see in Western Europe or North America. The market itself is very underdeveloped. So you don't have the content creator ecosystem, the funding ecosystem. So really it fell upon retailers like us to actually build everything if we wanted to create a market that was large enough for brands to find interest in. And so as Nykaa, what we did is not only did we build the largest base of consumers in the country, we have over 40 million shoppers on our platform, which is the size of some countries. But we also have over 250 stores. We are predominantly an e-commerce company, but we're also a content creator. As you can see behind me, this is an event which we host in India, gets about 30,000 customers come to attend. So we really had to build the entire ecosystem that would then enable brands to look at India as a serious market. So I think we spent the first few years building it. And then finally what happened is 2021, the pandemic hit. I think the recovery in China was poor. And a lot of global brands needed to find a market that would deliver the growth that they had historically depended on China for. And naturally, given our demographics, as you mentioned as well, around the GDP growth that we're seeing and the underpenetration of the market, India was a natural choice as a hedge against the risk that people were facing in China. So I think it was the brand started looking at India seriously. And in India, they saw a retailer like Nykaa, which not only had scale, but also had a very deep understanding of the local consumer. And for us, as we always say, it's about helping brands to tell the right story in the right way, using the right tools. And so we had to build all of those, and which is what we've done. And as a result, today we're very lucky to work with some of the best brands in the world. Some of them are here today, of course, Amore Pacific, L'Oreal, Estée Lauder. I see Vasiliki was also on the list, and she's been a great partner at Unilever Prestige. So I think everyone has realized that India is going to deliver growth for many decades to come. But they need a partner that they can trust, a partner who will help them to tell their story in a locally relevant fashion without losing that global equity. And I think that's what Nykaa does best.
Andy, you are doing somewhat of the same thing. I mean, I hear in so many conversations that, what's going on with Space NK? Are you launching in Space NK? Tell me about what's working there, because although the UK and India are very different, there's a lot of similarities between you and Anshit.
Yes, the UK is at a totally different point in terms of its evolution, and we have an incredibly educated customer in the UK. But what we're seeing is this real democratization, this shift from the consumer being able to discover products through one or two sources, where physical retail was sort of the predominant place 20 years ago to this massive democratization through social media, through the creator community. And Space NK has really evolved on that change. And so the core DNA that we started out with 32 years ago being that real curator of brands, being the company that went out around the world and brought brands that people were desperate to get their hands on to the UK consumer, still holds true today. But the methodology through which we do it has really evolved and changed over time. And so we think very omni-channel, we think very customer first. And what's really unique about Space NK in the market, and the reason that brands work with us so closely, is that we approach every brand uniquely. And as we put them into the Space NK ecosystem, we create bespoke experiences, and you've got an incredible one behind us, or a montage of incredible experiences, all really different, to help that brand not only grow their sales, but to really grow that awareness and grow that community. And within that, one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is working with the brands so that they're actually gaining the learnings from what we're doing, that it isn't about just injecting them into a machine and then sort of coming out at the end of it with sales growth, but really guiding their teams in how to grow the brand, how to understand that local customer, and how to continue then to expand globally beyond the UK market.
But you're also allowing brands to be themselves. I loved the example that we talked about the other day with K-Beauty, not losing the brand identity as you venture into a new market. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, I think it's a great example, and my team asked me not to mention the brand name, but that's out of the window now. But we're going to so just keep it between us and all the thousands of people watching online. K-Beauty it's an incredible brand, and actually you can take a lot of credit because we discovered it a couple of years ago here at the inaugural conference with Anchit and his family. And it's a brand that we're launching this summer, where it's an incredible Indian founder. It's predominantly an Indian brand, currently stocked only in India, but 13% of the UK population is from the Asian subcontinent, and they are really undercatered for. They're effectively having to find those shade extensions that suit their undertones. My wife is Sri Lankan, and she struggles to find foundation and coverage that really matches her skin tone. So she's covering rather than augmenting the natural beauty of the skin. And so our mentality is to go and find those brands wherever they are and bring them to our consumer, and then help the brand to really localize and speak to the UK consumer in a way that is very authentically them, but resonates with our consumer, with a UK consumer.
One thing both of you are doing, I think, is not pigeonholing the customer. You offer the breadth of mass and prestige. I know you sell Naturium, obviously you sell a lot of the L'Oreal Luxe brands. How are you thinking about that? Because those rules were there for a reason. Anchit, you want to start?
Yeah, so again, as I said, when we decided to do this business in India, we couldn't use global examples because India is a very, very different market. And we realized that it's such an early market. Andy spoke about UK consumers being highly educated about beauty. In India, it's the exact opposite. So we have to do that work. And there is a journey. And so we realized that India is not a country. India is a continent in many ways, and geographically diverse, socioeconomically diverse. And so we decided that we want to be a platform who has something at all different price points and all different categories that are relevant, but we want to sell in an aspirational way. So even though we sell mass and masstige brands, we've never looked to sell based on price or discounting, which is quite unique for predominant e-commerce retailers like ourselves, especially in India and in China and the developing world. So we stock everything from, as you mentioned, masstige brands that are super popular globally, like Elf, which I know is also, Tarang is here and he'll speak today, but it's a brand that is just absolutely flying, both obviously in India, but also globally. But we also sell Elf all the way till brands like Chanel, right, which we've just launched this year, brands like Armani. So, we've built a platform where luxury brands feel comfortable because we've created the right code, the right equity. We've also built that omni-channel play, which is important to them. But in India, you need to offer choice, and there is fantastic innovation coming out at the mass and the masstige price point as well. And India is a big enough market where all these brands can coexist. And in fact, what we see is a lot of consumers are acquired through the mass brands. As was mentioned in the McKinsey report, Gen Z consumers, first-time beauty buyers, don't want to spend too much money on this category, so they start at a low ASP. But then we work on them using education, awareness, and CRM and other tools that we have, experiences, to get them to premiumize as their affordability grows. So, I think we have to offer what the consumer is looking for. And the lovely thing about India is that as Nykaa, we can shape consumer demand and drive consumer awareness. So yeah, ours is a very versatile platform. People ask me, is there a comparable platform anywhere in the world? I say it's not possible to find a comp because India itself is an incomparable market. So we've built what is relevant for India, and that has allowed these brands to coexist on the platform together. And we're using technology to also personalize the experience. So if you are a consumer who has certain affordability, we'll show you relevant brands, and consumers who are looking for more luxury brands, we can really personalize the experience on the app to achieve that. And also our stores, we have luxury stores and we have what we call as on-trend stores. So depending on the market, the catchment, the consumer type, we're really able to address both ends of the market.
Andy, it's kind of the flip for you, because I think Space NK was primarily known as a prestige and luxury player, and now you've kind of gone the opposite direction. Will you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's been a very deliberate democratization of our brand selection. So again, sort of going back to the change in the way that consumers shop and thinking much more about what are the brands that consumers are looking for, rather than trying to pigeonhole them and define what we should be in their shopping habits. We know that consumers shop across price points. My cleanser of choice is an ordinary cleanser, and my favorite fragrance is Creed. So it isn't about someone either only shops luxury or only shops entry. And so we really are price agnostic. And I think when you look at anyone's makeup bag, if you look at anyone's bathroom shelf, you'll see that whole breadth of price points. So it's all about offering the customer all of the things that they want to buy. But we're still very curated. So we look to the brands that are in growth, those brands that have got a differentiated story. And you mentioned Naturium, which is a fantastic example, because for the US members of the audience, that's very much a target brand in the US. It's situated in a fairly mass big box retailer. But in the UK, before the Elf acquisition, we reached out to them and we spoke to them and came and visited our stores and showed them what we could do for their brand. And originally, the skincare line, very good, efficacious ingredients, really strong storytelling, really solution-based, but at a very affordable price, really spoke to a consumer and brought a new consumer into Space NK, but also attracted a consumer from across our business who was perhaps buying makeup, but the skincare that we had didn't resonate with them. And then when they brought their body care lines in, it's actually a relatively large step up from your body care line, to be spending $20 on shower gel for some customers. And so then you're getting the luxury customers then upgrading their shower experience. So again, it's thinking about all of these, sort of the breadth of the customer and not pigeonholing them. We're not the same customer in one day, let alone over our lifetime. So to sort of speak to a single customer and place them in these convenient profiles that a lot of retailers used to do. This is Annie, she only buys expensive products, she shops 5 times a year, and she doesn't like online because she doesn't trust credit cards. That isn't a real person. We are all of those people all of the time. And so really sort of adjusting your offering and being very, very flexible to those different customer missions.
Quickly, going back to the consumption piece, and Sheet, you said a second ago that maybe people are hedging their bets. Maybe, they're not looking to China, which I think a lot of people aren't as much. Do you think that brands are hedging their bets? And have you seen more brands come to you and say, I want to launch in the UK, I want to launch in India?
We're definitely seeing brands looking for international expansion, but I wouldn't like to think of it as hedging their bets. I think that it's just a natural growth of a brand to want to look to international, and there isn't necessarily a defined right time. It isn't after 18 months you should internationalize or after 2 years you should internationalize. But what I'm seeing is that the brands really need to think about who the right partner is as they go on that international expansion journey. Because you go into new markets, one of the key things you should be thinking about as a brand is actually understanding that local market, that local consumer, and building your community. And if you choose to go into these new markets as part of a global strategy within a single retailer, what you'll generally learn is how to be better in that retailer. You're not learning how to connect to that consumer. You're not learning about the marketing channels and the way to disrupt in a unique way. And so as you continue to expand internationally, and you continue to either add partners or through new distribution or with a mono retailer, each one comes with risk and reward. And I think that brands need to really think about what the right journey for them. Do they want to connect with their customer, or do they want the retailer to do all of that for them?
We have a lot of brands in the audience, as well as retailers. What advice would you give them, especially young brands who are thinking about taking the leap, going to Nykaa, going to India, or going to Space NK in the UK? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say India is too important to ignore for a brand now. It's not only is it a large market in absolute terms, but it is going to be the fastest growing beauty market for the coming decades. So, I think it's every brand needs to think about, do they have a right to win or even a right to play in the India market? And you need to decide fast, because I think over the past 12 to 24 months, there has been tremendous amount of activity, predominantly from the large beauty brand companies who have invested a lot of time and money on understanding the market and coming in force, coming with their set of brands. I mean, as I mentioned, some of the big brands, the L'Oreals of the world, the Amore Pacifics, they are truly investing time and energy to come and understand the market locally. So India is not a market where you can just say, hey, let me find a distributor and just list my products on Nykaa. I think it has to be a market where you believe in the potential. And then, as Andy said, you really find a partner who can help you to crack the local market. And we see ourselves as being that partner, because obviously this is all we do. We're a specialist. We've done it for a long time. We have a large base of consumers, and we understand this category very well. So I think find the right partner and be patient, invest in India. It will pay rich dividends for years and years and years to come. That goes without saying. But it is a very different market from anything else you've done, whether you're from North America or from Europe, and you need to understand it. And we personally understand it very well. Now, for the large brands, for them, they can invest and put up offices, hire people, deal with the bureaucracy, which is there, obviously, in terms of doing business in a way. But what we offer to other brands, to standalone brands who don't have that ability, is we're happy to do end-to-end services for you. So we call it the Nykaa Global Store. We work with a lot of brands in that model. Brands like Charlotte Tilbury, other standalone brands, where we will do the importing, the registration, the distribution, the marketing services, the operations, end to end. And I think that's another great way to enter the market. But I think it's something to immediately start thinking about if India is right for you. And we'd love to obviously share more details on India for those who are interested.
What about for you, Andy? You have a very different point of view about brand finding.
Yeah, we think of ourselves as hunters. So we go out and find brands, and that's really what we're there to do. That's what we're employed to do, is go out and see. We get about 2,000 brand inbounds. A couple of those are really exciting, but fundamentally, I would say to all the founders in the room, if you're spending your time building PowerPoints and sending them to retailers, you've got your focus wrong. You've got your priorities wrong. If you go and find your customer in your community and build that and invest time in that, we'll find you. And if you look at how Space NK has developed over time, and we mentioned some of the brands that we've got out and found from around the world, we're the biggest specialist beauty retailer in the UK, growing 4 times the market. We've done that for the last 4 years. So we're on incredible brand growth, and we've done that through leveraging customer data and our deep understanding of the UK customer, but bringing to life brands, and we're real brand builders. So I think brands should all think about how they are thinking about growing their brands, and we will definitely come and find you when the time is right and help to really accelerate that.
One last question for you both. Obviously, you have a localized and a personalized point of view in each of your own markets, but what are your global ambitions?
So we operate globally from an e-commerce point of view, and we have a particular focus on a handful of European markets. And we invest in exactly the same way, thinking very much about the customer and connecting customer and brands together. And we're seeing very, very strong traction in that space. So triple-digit growth across all of those focus markets. But it isn't about taking the same cookie-cutter approach of what's worked in the UK. So when we talk about localization, I think most retailers would stop at saying, well, we've translated the site and we've added some different payment methods. Our localization is we've got fundamentally different personalization algorithms in every country we operate in. Our category hierarchy is different. The way that we group products together is different because we understand that customer or have taken the time to understand that customer. So the wrapping proposition is the same, but actually everything underneath it is really personalized to that market.
And Chi, you have something to add?
Yeah, no, I look, for us, India is big enough and early enough in its journey where there's plenty to be done. So we're very, very busy with continuing to build the beauty ecosystem, because if we have to build the market if we want to have a sustainable long-term business in India, and that's our responsibility as the largest beauty company in India. So that's priority number one. But we have also expanded into the Gulf, GCC, Middle East. Another very, very different, actually in a way, very different from India because high per capita consumption and a smaller population. But there we feel that e-commerce hasn't been done as well as it should be. And in fact, India is, I would say, one of the more digitally innovative markets currently. And we've learned a lot. We've built an amazing consumer tech business in India, which we're looking to now take to the Middle East. So we've launched in the Middle East, in the Gulf, Saudi, KSA, as well as the Arab Emirates. And I think that's another priority market. But I think it's really those two for now. And of course, priority remains India for many, many years to come.
Thank you both for being here. It was wonderful having you.
Thank you very much, Priya.
So we're taking a trip around the world. With its growing wealth, creative energy, and young customer base, Mexico is shaping up to be beauty's next big opportunity. The Mexican beauty market reached $16.2 billion last year. But leaders from Mexico, just like in the UK and in India, say the industry should be learning from its homegrown successes and not simply looking to import international brands with a cookie-cutter approach. To explain why Mexico is beauty's next frontier, please welcome Huguette Cervantes Leang, Chief Executive of Ulta Beauty Mexico, Remy Martini and Ana Sorelli, co-founders of Sorelli Sorelli, Nor Terea, co-founder and CEO of Aurora Mexico, together with one of our finalists from last year's Global Awards, Nopalera's Sandra Velasquez.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Huguette,
Okay.
you've had a decades-long career in beauty spanning from L'Oreal, Louis Vuitton, to Palacio de Hierro, and now Ulta Mexico. How have you seen the perception of Mexican beauty in the market change?
So first of all, nice to meet you, everyone. And yes, Mexico has a long-standing history in beauty. Major beauty brands and their offices arrived to the country early as 1940s. So shaping generation of consumers that really see the trends, that's happening in the world. We have also a deep-rooted tradition in department stores. So driving back to the mid-19th century. So the consumer is very sophisticated and demanding a lot. For decades, Mexicans aspired to the beauty ideals they saw in advertising. So we try to be blonde and we try to be lighter. So they buy a lot of makeup, several shades lighter than their skin. And it was very, very, very painful, I think. And later, when I returned to Palacio de Hierro like 6 years ago, I witnessed a major transformation. They start embracing authenticity, a broader spectrum of representation, and asking more personalization, innovation, and of course, a lot of experience. Mexicans love experience. And when I was working in France, I saw also Mexicans perceived as a not important market, not a good nationality. And, but now, I think things have changed. We see Mexico as a lot of creativity, and that the people is aware of trends and also very digitally connected. And there are many, many influencers, Anna, that are shaping a little bit the market. So now we are proud to look as we are. And it's very, very important to look this way in Mexico. So we saw a very important opportunity for Ulta to bring this tremendous opportunity of see ourselves as Mexicans.
Thank you again. Remy, you moved from Europe and you have now been in Mexico City for over 10 years.
Yes.
What have you learned about the Mexican beauty consumer that others could benefit from?
I would say that first, Mexico doesn't follow trends. Mexico is the trend. And on every industry, like the most amazing malls I've seen in my life are in Mexico City. The food, with now Michelin star. Michelin arrived 2 years ago and the Michelin star everywhere in Mexico City. To Huguette's point, the retail experience, the most amazing department store where you've been working for a few years. And I would say also that the Mexican consumer and the Mexican beauty market is massive. It's a $60 billion market that is growing, very sophisticated. They have clear, they don't always follow global trends. They have unique needs, very like waterproof mascara, very matte lip, but without dryness. But what I would say is that to me, the most important thing is how cultural insight is key. For example, in our brand, Sareli Sari, that co-founded with this wonderful person here, our top-selling product is a mascara called Long Cow Lashes. People would say like, why you put a cow on the packaging? Literally, we have a big cow on the box. And that comes from an insight that basically any abuelas would tell that Latinas have pestañas de vaca. Why? Because they are long, thin, and grow downwards. And the fact that we literally like leverage that became viral. It's one of the top-selling mascara in Mexico right now, before some big name like L'Oreal. And the campaign was Ana, as a little girl, running into the Mexican countryside with her best friend, the cows, and wanted to have those amazing cow lashes. And that, to me, is key, is how like an insight that might not be globally accepted became viral. And now that we launched in the US, even Latinos in the US recognize the fact that pestañas de vacas are everything.
Now you know. Ana, as an influencer founder, you have seen so many products. What gave you the gravitas and conviction that you could offer something different?
Okay, hi everyone. I feel super blessed to have this job and to try thousands of products that have been sent to me. And all of them, amazing, amazing brands. It's a quite competitive market. Pretty much the majority of them are created, and marketed for Northern Americans, for Europeans, for Asians. And that's when I've found the gap. My community and myself, we didn't see ourselves on the brands on the shelves, in the brands of the shelves. So that was the first pinpoint, like I want to feel represented on the beauty shelves. That's when I knew I could bring a combined perspective of performance, of course, after trying so many products and being a beauty enthusiast. Also, cute aesthetics, of course. Not the cliche of you think of Mexico, of like this and Frida Kahlo, of like what actually Mexico is right now. It's a cool city. Like all of my neighbors right now are like New Yorkers. I'm around of New York and Mexico City for some reason, but it's cool. Like it's getting popular because it's a creative city, spicy energy city. Like everything we do, like Mexico has so much creativity and power and potential that I know I can combine that with performance and also that cultural pride and create something to make the community that I created for years and myself to feel represented. And also, I think a major key point was also that I had a direct line with millions of people and followers like, hey, do you actually like this? So we co-create everything. Sometimes Frankenstein says like, I know this is hideous, but do you actually like it? And they're like, dude, don't launch that. That's not gonna sell. Like, okay, thank you. So I think that's also something that pushed me to launch the brand. And my business husband, he was like, yes, we can do this. Because at the beginning I was a little bit scared, so yeah.
Amazing. Noor, you spent over a decade at L'Oreal. But when it came time to build your own brand, you didn't just create Ahora. You rooted it in Mexico. You named it Ahora Mexico. So why did you choose to anchor it, your brand, so explicitly to a place? And how has that decision shaped your storytelling, your positioning, everything?
It was hard in the beginning to decide. I mean, I decided I really wanted to name it Mexico. We had friends of the brand, investors, technical people, because by the way, SEO is not great when you put Mexico in your name and your authority in Google goes down. Like there was a lot of technical things behind it, but it was so important because, of course, it came from a love for Mexico. It came from a love for beauty. It came from a lot of frustrations that Mexico did answer. Beauty is full of the North. Think about the many brands that end with Paris, London, New York, or LA. I think clean beauty has become a bit beige, and it needs a bit more color. And we have a big problem with plastic. And unfortunately, plastic, the North pollutes, and it's the South that chokes. So Mexico was a very good answer for that, especially as we're building a brand for luxury, premium, and an origin is important. Because an origin gives you flavors, scents, designers, artistry, colors. It makes your job easier, and it makes it easier to do timeless things. And that's what we've been doing on the brand. We wanted to do quite the cult of the object and of storytelling and of culture. Like our eyeshadow palette, the gold is not any gold. It's the same gold as it's the most used gold in Mexico because it's the 10 peso coin fresh from the bank. It's that gold. And then you have like steps that are the same proportions as Art Deco steps of the Bellas Artes. Then you have colors that come from very specific artists and what they've done. And that's what we think is gonna keep something ingrained in a culture for a long time, because putting a place of origin does get you far.
I love it. I think we're the most colorful panel at the forum. You can clap for that. Yeah. Back to you, Huguette. What is Ulta Beauty bringing to the Mexican beauty market and consumer that will differentiate it from the current offerings in the country?
I think we arrived to a market that is not easy, it's complex. It's not like you arrive and you conquer very quickly, no? It's a very highly nuanced market. What I mean, it's you have a national identity, but it's very different the North and the South. You are not like arrive to Mexico City and Monterrey are going to buy the same thing. It's not exactly like that. When we thought about Ulta, it's also to thought that we are not an extension of US. And many people think about it. They say, oh, Mexico, US. So that means the brands are the same. It's not like that. Look, you have brands like Loewe that in Europe are very important, in US no, and in Mexico is one of the most important fragrances. Carolina Herrera now is growing in US, but in Mexico is the number one fragrance sale in the country. So if you want to arrive there, you need to think about Mexicans. And also it's important that we arrive because we believe it's missing this space where you break the traditional barrier between mass and prestige. Mexicans are very sophisticated. They love this amazing department store, very luxury, and they go to the supermarket to buy like the beauty that is not like so expensive. We need to bring this space where you can buy and try both. And I think it's what Ulta can bring to Mexico. And also this diversity, because we need diversity. We cannot be blonde. We are like what we are, and we love colors, and we love like lipstick is very important in our country. So we need this also to try to build community and to find this celebration of our identity.
Follow-up, Huguette, what is difficult about launching in Mexico?
As I said,
You're at the precipice of a launch, right?
So it's a regulated market. It's not like, it's not easy. It's not like you arrive and you can bring your products like they are. You need to go to COFEPRIS, that is our health department, and to bring all your formulas. It's not so difficult, but you need to bring it and to regulate this market. It's also, as I said, to think about all the country. We are not another Latin American country. Latin America is very different. Each country is different, and we need to think about it. And also, it's very important that you need to be humble and learn, because it's not like, because I know the world, I know Mexico. And I think it's very important when you launch to try to figure it out who is the consumer and go They are very data-driven. They are people that go to social media. You can look at them. TikTok, you have done an amazing job there. And they are very, very well connected. And you need to know that. And we are young. It's a very big population, young, Gen Z, Alpha. So you need to touch base with them to launch in this country.
I love it. This is for the founders on the stage, so Remy, Anna, and Noor. How important is storytelling in the success of your beauty brands? And how do you plan on leveraging these stories as you expand globally? Let's start with Remy.
I think, yeah, to this point, we always have to make sure that storytelling is key and cultural insight is key without having some kind of cultural appropriation. And to Huguette's point, some insight might differ from a Mexican in Mexico City than a Mexican in North, than a Latino or a Mexican person that lives in the US. So I would say that how we can work together with the client, in our case, as Anna mentioned, the fact that we co-create everything with our audience, that we show them everything, and on average we gather at least 100,000 people answering surveys on TikTok, on Instagram, will give us that source of truth where, as founder, we might have an idea, but it might be wrong. And I think the Mexican consumer, for the first time, maybe in a long time, want to show that it's an active consumer. They are not just passive waiting for a big company to tell them, buy that. So if we can involve them and make them co-creator of the brand, that's, to me, the ideal path to success.
Anna, would you want to add to that?
Yes, I know storytelling is important to any brand if you want to grow and have your campaigns and actually connect with people. But it's not for us just, and I speak for the three of us, I hope you agree, and I think you do. It's not just a marketing tool. As being Mexico, our identity and that spicy energy, having to do storytelling is the identity, is the DNA. For example, the buchona lip combo to the aesthetic of the buchonas, or for example, the cow lashes for the aesthetic of the cows. It's not just a marketing tool, it's to think about it like that's the brand. So I think when scaling globally, storytelling is gonna be key, because usually when you go to another country, you're like, okay, especially to Mexican brands, they're like, okay, you need to Americanize it. You need to tone it down. You need to make it fit the global standard, because that looks like a global brand. And I think right now, having our storytelling like that, it's not to tone it down, it's to actually amplify it and like, this is us and we're loud and this spicy energy, here we go. And if you wanna lean into it, here we are. So I think that's how we're gonna do it. I think so.
Noor, do you want to turn that up a notch?
Let's turn it up a notch. Well, we're taking it honestly. At the end of the day, I think if you're buying Ahora Mexico, you need to be buying a piece of Mexico. The idea is to also transport you there. And there's no shame in that. That is the market we are in. That is what branding and marketing and luxury does. For a very long time, we've all taken the Parisian beret and La Vie en Rose and the baguette that has appeared in hundreds of brands and hundreds of campaigns, and a car driving down the Eiffel Tower. Well, it's time that it drives down the Ángel de la Independencia and that you get stories from somewhere else. And we're putting that storytelling in every aspect we are doing. You get it from the unboxing experience of a product. You get it from the music. We just launched a lip gloss that has 5 different chiles in it. And it's like hot sauce, and it's spicy, and it's going to irritate your lips the good old natural way. And if you want more, just put on some more. And it's called Hot Like Mexico, the whole campaign. And that's what's fun about it. And then we're launching a primer that's anti-pollution, because you know what? CDMX is one of the most polluted cities in the world. So if anyone knows pollution, we do. So I think we want to take storytelling from an insights point of view, but also to bring it to anyone who wants a bit of Mexico right now, and all of the indexes are going in that direction. Every airline in the world has added more flights, and that doesn't happen easily. The amount of brands being exported, the amount of people coming, the inflation that is happening, and how expensive our apartments have become. So more people need to buy stuff from Mexico. Yes.
I have tried the lip gloss with 5 chiles, and it is hot. It is not a joke. It is not for the faint of heart. Just follow-up question for you guys. Why do you think a Mexican beauty brand has not scaled globally yet?
It takes time, as I said, to recognize ourselves. We were so focused in the external world that now we are focusing ourselves. So this has started with a little bit more like food, because Mexican food is amazing. But has started also with architectural or design, and now it's touching beauty. And I think it's what it was missing. And also we have all these ingredients that are so well known in other brands, not in Mexican brands. So we need to take them back, and I hope for the future to have this brand that I can see in all the stores in the world.
So this is a question now for all of you. We have some time, this is good. Why do you think that so many American and European brands want to launch in Mexico now? And what do they need to resonate with the customer? Noor?
Sure. Look, from a data point of view, I think we all just looked at the numbers. Mexico is a growing economy. It's an economy with young people. I think it's quite a sophisticated economy as well that does consume, and does consume in a very diverse way. And Mexico is having a moment. Mexico is having a zeitgeist that is actually given a feedback loop of inspiration. You have a lot of brands like Dior came and did their show in Mexico. There's Latin language is growing. It's no coincidence that I think the most listened to song this year was Bad Bunny, and it was in Spanish. So there's a place in culture that I think big brands get to where they were because they can sense when something's happening and they want a piece of it. And I feel everyone's waking up that it's a good time to have a piece of Mexico.
It is.
And specifically in beauty, Mexicans are buchones. They're like over the top. They like makeup, not like natural makeup. You know what I mean? So I think it's a perfect market for that. It's a combine of economy growing, of being right now it's cool city to go to do home office, plus social media, honestly. Like TikTok Shop just launched like 3 months ago in Mexico, and it's been a huge success in only 3 months. So I think it's a combination of everything, and that we're bougie. Yeah.
Remy, anything to add?
I would say that something that you get about why a lot of investors are asking me, but we could invest in you, but no brand didn't exceed before, so it's going to be risky, but at the same time, it's because no investor invested in us before. And we've been talking a lot about that. Like, sometimes we have to almost hide the fact that we are Mexican, but I think now there is a movement because of this global company like Ulta, because Sephora has grown like crazy last year in Mexico, and I think it's the right moment because to that point, I think Mexico is not just a moment, it's a movement. And to me, it's a global source and a long-term source of inspiration. And I hope that us, founders from Mexico, I'm not Mexican, but I feel like Mexican, we're going to show the world that the next LVMH will be from LATAM, ideally from Mexico, and not from Paris or New York.
I think that's a perfect way to end. Thank you to my panelists. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I was looking for a holiday destination in December. I think I know where I'm going now. Nikhil, want to go to Mexico? We're continuing our world tour, and this one is an important one. More than 20% of the world's total population are Muslims, some 1.5 billion people. But they have largely been neglected and overlooked by the mainstream beauty industry. While each Muslim practices their faith in their own way, many observant Muslims partake in food and other products under the principles of halal, an Arabic word which means lawful or permitted. Here to explain the principles of halal beauty and the business opportunities inside the halal beauty boom is Dr. Sari Charunitsa, co-founder and deputy chief executive of Indonesian halal cosmetics brand Paragon Corporation, together with BOF's Brandon Kilbane. you. Thank you.
Dr. Hiranisa, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you, Brennan.
It's your first time at the Global Forum.
It's our both
Our first time,
right?
our first time together. Yes, we're celebrating. So Paragon is one of Southeast Asia's biggest beauty companies, but it's probably the world leader in halal beauty. Can you tell us a little bit about what makes a beauty product halal?
Okay, first of all, thank you, Amran, for the really good introduction. So, halal in Arabic means like allow or permission, right? So, if we are talking about halal beauty, then we have to understand what is not allowed to be in our beauty products. So, in Quran, in our holy book, there are several things that we are not allowed to eat. To drink. So it will be not allowed also in our beauty products. So there will be blood, porcine, or some, meat that not being processed in the name of Allah. So there are three. So next the question is there any, anything we put into our cosmetic products, right? So it's not really like porcine in our product, but there are some, the critical things is the raw material. So the raw material, you have to understand about the source or the process. Sometimes there is a fermentation, and then the medium will be maybe with a porcine medium. So there are some active like collagen or glycerin or, gelatin that is critical to that activity. And then, our halal accreditation will see like all the process of the production or process in the laboratorium, and also the during delivery, or where do you store it, because it will be mixed or not. So that will make product halal or not. But it's very rooted in religion, right? So in our halal regulatory body, it is also not allowed to put the name of something is not allowed into the product. Maybe the product will be completely halal in the raw material and process, but you cannot name the product, let's say, opium or champagne or wine. It's a very Muslim understanding. And that the third one, you have to understand also, Muslim will take ablution 5 times a day. So you have to make sure that the products will be water permeable. We have some products that have to be water resistant, so it won't ruin your eyes, if you run or if you cry, if you had a bad breakup. But it must, so it has to be water resistant enough, but it has to be water permeable, so it won't ruin our ablution activity. So it's critical for lip cream, for mascara, and also for nail polish. Wow. So maybe that will be like 3 major that hope that all of you, the brand founders, will get like a glimpse of, because like Amran said, our global population is like 8 billion, and then 1.5 to 1.9 billion is Muslim, and Indonesia is the biggest Muslim population in the world actually. Yes.
Amazing. And it sounds like it really it extends the halal. It extends to every single part of the process, from sourcing those raw materials to naming to packaging.
Yeah.
And I also understand that every Muslim person has different interpretations of halal. I'm wondering how how you approach product development and marketing with that.
Okay, maybe so like the definition is all the same because it's based on Quran, right? But you have to understand there are some halal regulatory will have, let's say, some detailed criteria that may be different. So let's say like halal in some countries will need like PCR to make sure that there is no porcine DNA in the critical raw material, but not in Indonesia. And then there are some pigment source that also different, like in Indonesia, and in Middle East, but you know, like some minor criteria. But the one that I can explain, but usually in one region, the halal regulation will be quite the same, because usually we will have like some agreements. So you know, Middle East region and then Southeast Asia region, it will be the same. And also I think what will be useful information for you, each of the halal regulatory for the country, they usually have partner in some countries, and then you can find it in website. So like us in Indonesia, we call it BPJPH or MUI. And then if you go to the website, they will have like in France, their partner is, you know, some big mouse, and then maybe in UK others. So if you want to take halal certification, then you can go to the halal body in the country that already approved by the country that you want to enter. So it will make easier.
Makes it a little bit easier. Very nice.
Yeah.
And halal is only one quality that Muslim beauty customers are looking for. How do you also keep your focus on quality and innovation above all when making these beauty products?
So this is what we learned when we launched Wardah. So Wardah is one of the halal beauty pioneer in the world. So we launched it about 30 years ago. So, and right now, Wardah is the biggest brand equity in Southeast Asia region, not only talking about halal, but all the beauty brand. And understand, you know the concept of blue ocean, red ocean, right? Imagine 1995, nobody's talking about halal beauty. It's like a blue, deep blue, no red dots in it. But then we understand it's not only talking about halal. You know, people will want to have like high performance product in the first place, so it will be hygiene. So at that time, we understand, okay, it's not only talking about halal as our unique selling proposition, we also have to leverage our production and R&D capability. So because we understand, like, you know, from 30 years ago, high performance product comes first. Of course, you want to have like a good sunscreen, right? You want to have like high protection sunscreen. You want to have like moisturizer, or you want to have like a good sensory serum, something like that. And then the second one, of course, for Muslim, they need halal products. And then the third one, I think just like another brand, and then just like the previous panel, I think consumer wants to be heard, wants to be represented, because what we learn, and then I think until now, you know, we don't see enough Muslim women being good representation, you know, in the billboard or in Sephora or in Ulta. So I think, you know, the modern Muslim, the young generation wants to see themselves being represented well by the brand, not only beauty, but maybe with fashion also, shoes, yeah.
Right. But especially beauty, right? So personal,
Yes.
we need to see ourselves represented.
Yeah.
You mentioned Wardah is the biggest brand in Paragon's portfolio and the biggest beauty brand in Indonesia.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about some of Paragon's other brands and how big the business is.
Yeah, so Paragon is the largest cosmetic manufacturer in Indonesia. And talking about brand, we have 14 brands right now. So we are talking about from personal care, male grooming, beauty, and also skincare. We are now in several countries in Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, Malaysia, and also Brunei. We have 11,000 employees. And we also have one of the largest R&D laboratory in Southeast Asia.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, let's zoom out a little bit and talk more about Southeast Asia, which is a big, big area of investment for beauty brands around the world. Yes. It's one of the fastest growing regions for beauty, and executives, many of whom may be here, are keen to push their brands into that market. What obstacles do you think that they will face, global brands entering Southeast Asia, particularly Indonesia, and how can they get ready for that?
Okay. I think you need to understand, like, the Southeast Asia region is the highest growth rate right now in global beauty. And then the second one, you have to understand also the majority is a Muslim population. And then so you have to understand, you know, just like the previous panel, I mean, you have to understand that there will be difference. There will be difference in not only we are talking about skin type or climate or shade, but also like what they aspire to be, because it has to represent on your image of the brand, right? And then what is important for them. And then I think, because if you see halal only like criteria, only like source and then process, and then you go all the checklist, and then you will have like another multinational brand in Indonesia. So right now, interestingly, in skincare and also makeup, the one that have a good growth is actually the local brand, because they do understand they set match, and then their image is what we aspire to be. Yeah.
Localization is very important.
Yes.
Yeah. One thing that I also learned is that in Indonesia, products have to declare on their package, upfront on their package, if they're halal. Do you think this is a big obstacle for global brands?
Yes, so our previous president make halal mandatory, but we have like grace period. So in 2026, all beauty products is mandatory to be halal. Will it be obstacle or not? But I think right now there are many contract manufacturing that already familiar with halal criteria. So I think the obstacle will be, really understand the consumer, and really understand the consumer will imply to your product portfolio in how you communicate the brand, right? And understand the channel in the Southeast Asia region.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask a little bit more about that too. It feels like the thing to do for these companies that want to reach that Muslim customer is find the right partners, those contract manufacturers.
Yeah.
Where should they start if they're somebody who hasn't a clue where to begin?
I think right now, talking about Southeast Asia region, then you have to choose a partner that is familiar with the region. So if you are not doing your own manufacture, you can choose contract manufacturing in that region. Southeast Asia, in Thailand, Indonesia, or in Asia, there will be like South Korea. So they're already familiar. And then, I think you should come, you should see, go to the mall, go to the department store, go to the beauty event, because like what Nykaa present, we also have like local e-commerce that have a big beauty event. Then you can feel like what interesting for the consumer, what is not, and then you can talk directly to the consumer. Yeah.
Nice.
I think it's really important.
In countries like the US, where there are significant Muslim populations, there are 4.5 Muslim people in the United States. What can brands who operate in these countries learn from the Indonesian or Southeast Asian market?
I think what we can learn from right now the dynamic in Southeast Asia is, first you have to be really fast and agile, because it's really driven by e-commerce. And talking about e-commerce, the one that is the highest growth is TikTok Shop. So it's a live streaming concept, right? If you do live streaming, and then people will also do live comment on your products. And then, sometimes we think like live streaming is only doing live with your cell phone, but it's actually like more complicated than that. So agile, very e-commerce or very tech-driven. And then, I think in Southeast Asia, culture is they also like to be in group. So, talking about not only online, but understand how to do offline event that attract the consumer is also important. And I think the Southeast Asia region growth is also teach us that, hyper personalization, understand what your consumer value, because I think in Southeast Asia region or Indonesia right now, they want to have a good product for them, but also good for the planet. Coming back to the halal topic also, people will used to think like, oh, halal is talking about the source, but actually, for us Muslim, halal is about making good products or making good action. So halal is not only about whether the source is has portion or not. For us, it's also talking about sustainability. It's also talking about the transparency of your brand. It's also talking about like what your brand stands for, you know, what is your brand's voice, and also talking about the representation. So it's talking about, you know, making a good move, making a good product. I think if you enter like Southeast region or maybe majority Muslim population, it's something that you have to understand that halal is not about like several checklists of the raw material, but it's talking about, you know, lifestyle.
Of course.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brennan.
For brown and black-owned brands, serving an underserved consumer is often at the heart of their business. But in the last 5 years, Black founders particularly have felt a sense of whiplash as the moment following George Floyd's murder, which propelled DE&I to the forefront, is now being rolled back. Here to talk to us about why Blackness is not a trend and why human and business fundamentals should be at the core of every brand strategy is Melissa Butler, the founder of The Lip Bar. Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
I'm so happy to you're here.
I'm so happy I made it, first of all. It was rough.
Melissa, you know, a couple of months ago, you posted a really viral video when you talked about how your biggest retailer had walked back their DE&I commitments. And you had a really different point of view from some of the people out there that were saying, boycott, boycott, boycott. Can you share with the audience what you said?
Yeah, and it's not that I had necessarily a different perspective than the audience, because I think that as a company, when you make inclusivity a big part of your identity and then change that, of course your customer who was used to seeing themselves, that customer who was used to being serviced through your channels, of course they're going to feel disappointed. But my customer is primarily Black and brown women. And those women, if they were going to call for a boycott, I knew that inevitably our sales would suffer. And so my goal in the video that ultimately got like 5 million views was to educate the customer on what does it mean to boycott? You know, and how far will that boycott go? Because ultimately, if you look at the stats, sure, said retailer is down maybe 6%, but my sales are down like 35%. And so it's like at the end of the day, who's actually being hurt here? It's certainly not the retailer en masse. It is ultimately the businesses that are looking to support you.
Where do you think the disconnect is between the Black and brown consumer and the brands themselves? You know, I think you said to me, no other industry do you have to kind of go into something like this or supply chain or tariffs. And is that because the expectation is so much higher, or do you think it's just because beauty is so personal?
Well, I think it's because beauty is personal. I also think that largely it's because this is a customer who for years has been underserviced. As a founder, you know, these are people who have been underfunded. So, you know, these people are used to getting the short ends of the stick. And I think the disconnect becomes where you feel as though things are actually changing. You see that light at the end of the tunnel, and then all of a sudden you realize that in fact it was a trend, that in fact they didn't care, that in fact, you know, those black squares didn't do anything, and the disconnect becomes really painful because you then have expectations. Whereas prior to a lot of the diversity, equity, and inclusion commitments, no one expected much. You knew that there weren't going to be brands that serviced you. You knew that, you know, when X conglomerate launched, they would not have a shade range that would be inclusive to everyone in your family. That was the norm. And now, you know, or 2020, everyone held their flag and said, we're here for Black-owned businesses. We're here for Black beauty consumers. We're here for, brown people. And then it was like, oh, wait, that was a farce. And I think we're seeing the community reject it. They're like, you don't get to do that. You don't get to yo-yo your brand values and get me to shop with you one day and then change your mind the next.
The Lip Bar is 13 years old. So you've been around way before, some of these movements, and before body positivity or D&I was being popularized in a lot of different rooms and circles. Talk to me about why you did this. I mean, was it that you didn't see yourself? Was it that, that MAC lip gloss that you loved when you were a girl wasn't enough anymore?
Yeah, I started the Lip Bar not because I love makeup. I did not start it because I'm a makeup artist. You have many brands like Danessa here who start because they see a product gap or they want to produce a new and beautiful product. I started the Lip Bar because I was so frustrated with the sameness of the industry. This idea that beauty looked like one thing, this idea that you needed to look a certain way in order to be considered beautiful. And I thought about myself, I thought about my sisters, my nieces, and I'm like, wow, if they could just have the self-esteem necessary to achieve their dreams, if they could just see themselves present, if they could just know that beauty doesn't have to look like one thing and that they are in fact enough, wow, what could they conquer? And so that's what I was solving for when I started the Lip Bar, making lipstick in my kitchen when I was working on Wall Street. It had nothing to do with how much money I wanted to make. It was largely about the impact that I wanted to have. The Lip Bar is a self-esteem business. And so you look at, 13 years in business, and we've had slow and steady growth all 13 years, which has been a true blessing. But it's really because we've always been a community-based business. And so you see the industry shifting from DEI to tariffs to, your retailers. But yet and still, our sales are down 35% in our largest retailer, but our .com is up 110%, and was also last year, and we continue to grow year over year. We're doubling our EBITDA this year, and it's like, why? Why is the Lip Bar able to sustain? Why is the Lip Bar able to maintain its growth? Because we started the business for the community. Every day we are servicing that community, and they show up to support us.
One thing we hear a lot from Black brands as well as minority-oriented brands is that they don't have the permission to play with white women or European women. Talk to me about that, whether or not the Lip Bar does.
Well, I think everyone has permission to play, right? But in this world of personalization, everyone is wanting to see themselves. And so by centering Black women in a lot of our content and our assets on our website, as a white woman or just a non-Black woman, if you come to our site, you're like, oh, wait, because there are Black women here centered in beauty, I am not supposed to shop. And so it becomes a very frustrating experience for a Black founder, because how do you get to scale if Black people in this country are only 15% of the population, or less in some instances? So it reminds me to, think about why I started the brand in terms of this is our core and we're going to continue to service them. But at the end of the day, there's no difference between my lips and your lips and her lips. Everyone is trying to solve a beauty need. And we are first seeking to show that customer that she is enough. Beyond that, we're seeking to show that customer that we have amazing effing products. We don't want you to support us because of support. We don't, black business owners don't need your charity. We need you to actually try our products. We need you to actually check your bias that says, if a Black woman is centered, that's not for me, because Black women are experiencing the opposite every single day. When you go to the beauty shelf and you don't see a Black woman, and you're like, okay, I'll still give it a shot. So we do have the right to play. We do have the room to play. Every one of you would look fabulous in Boss Lady. But at the end of the day, it takes the courage from the consumer to say, it's okay to not see myself as so many others have experienced it as well.
That was very powerful, Melissa. A storyline that we've heard a lot as these DE&I commitments have been walked back and the funding has dried up is that, back businesses have closed and, were they the right brands to begin with? And, were they serving the customer? Are they needed? But you are a Black founder, but you're also just a founder.
I'm just a founder.
You're just a founder. So why do you think those businesses closed? Why do you think, they were maybe subject to kind of the changes in the market? And what are you thinking about besides just being a Black founder?
Well, I think a lot of businesses will close. Black-owned businesses, brown-owned businesses, white-owned businesses. We are in a tough market. We are subject to tariffs. We do have, somewhat of a recession. We do have underconsumption trends taking place on the internet. People do have too much shit. Frankly, they do. and so I think we will see a lot more failures, not only in the beauty industry, but just business in general, because as the cost of living continues to rise, as inflation rears its ugly head and those dollars don't follow, people are a lot more conscious of how they're spending their disposable income. And so I ask you guys to take the word Black out of it. It's just that some businesses are succeeding and some are failing. And some of them are failing not because they're Black owned, maybe they're just bad operators, which can happen in any industry from any person,
Right. What do you think about what are you thinking about for you yourself personally? You mentioned tariffs, you mentioned inflation. You are sold in mass aisles, you are a masstige brand, but have you thought about retail in a different way now? Are you thinking about production in a different way? What is, when we walk into Melissa's office, what are you talking to your team about?
We're talking about channel diversification a lot, and not even just because of the retail ups and downs, but simply because I think the customer is moving. A few years ago, people were not as excited about Amazon. Today, they are. People are also really excited about TikTok Shop. We've seen a lot of growth on TikTok Shop. And it goes back to that idea of personalization and people wanting to be seen. So you go on TikTok and you see a woman who is your skin twin. You see a woman who has acne just like you or who has wrinkles just like you, and she's telling you exactly what she did in order to solve her problem. And you're like, yep, I'm gonna buy it. One click, TikTok Shop. So we're trying to figure out how do we continue to grow that channel while also understanding that it's fickle. Virality is fickle. We've gone viral many times, and God knows that's really challenging to keep up with, because sometimes you go viral with something you didn't even want to go viral with, and now you're out of stock. So we're trying to figure out how to have planned virality, how to have strategic growth on products that we actually want to move, and frankly, how do we get out of the box of, hey, only Black or brown women shop us because the founder of the lip bar is a Black woman.
Talk to me about values, because values is something that we've heard a lot about in beauty, and it's not just D&I. It's, when you're talking about sustainability, when you're talking about serving an older customer. But do you think businesses today can lead with values when trends are coming and going?
I do. It's interesting. I've spoken with a few bankers recently. I'm always curious to know what's happening in the market, right? And at sometimes I'm like, oh my God, we're like an ancient brand. We're 13 years old and we're still small. We're still growing. You're always sort of thinking about, how you can do it better. And the tune of bankers has changed this year. They've all said that, you know what? It's great that you're 13 years old. It's fantastic that you have a true community, that you have a true customer. We're not afraid that if someone, if you have some sort of transaction, you're gonna go out of business in 2 years. You're not a flash in the pan, you do have a true community. And so that really excites me, because trends always change, but honestly, my best seller in the company has been my best seller for 7 straight years. People consistently buy and come to you for what they know you for. And it's just our job to get more creative, to figure out how to tell, new stories and interesting stories, exciting stories about those same products, even in the wake of trends, because you'll always need a red lipstick.
My last question for you is, beauty is such a personal decision, but it's also very practical. And yes, there are brands and there are retailers and investors in the room, but there are also customers. What would you tell them? What's your pitch for the lip bar?
Ooh, my pitch for the lip bar is that we are a community-based business that happens to sell makeup. And those makeup products are vegan, cruelty-free, easy to use, made for women of every complexion, made for you. And so again, I want to challenge you guys when you are investing in businesses, when you're thinking about your retail shelves, when you are even thinking about products to copy, because I know a lot of people are doing that. Consider brands that come from people who don't look like you. Look across the aisle. Oftentimes when you see Black-owned or diverse brands, especially in mass, they're all clumped together. We're all in one tiny section of the aisle. And some people don't even go down that aisle. And it's just a reminder that Black beauty is beauty. It's just beauty that may look slightly different than what you're used to, but it's still beautiful no less.
Thank you so much. Immigration is a subject that many of us have a connection to. So many of us have parents or loved ones from other countries. Imran and I ourselves are both first generation in our home countries. And we, like you, recognize the distinct benefits that a multicultural society brings. But around the world, immigrant rights are under threat, and many of our colleagues, friends, and family no longer feel safe. Their contributions to our society are boundless, their humanity every bit as important as our own, and too many are slipping through the cracks. This is not an obscure political debate, this is real life. And I'm sure everyone here has been following the news about what's going on in Los Angeles and how ICE has taken over the city. This affects us all, and we have a responsibility to speak up for those who can't. Here to share the story of André José Hernández Romero, a Venezuelan makeup artist who disappeared in March and is being held overseas in prison, is Lindsay Kozlowski, his lawyer and the co-founder of the Immigrants Defenders law firm.
Hi, everyone. I just want to thank Priya and everyone here for giving me this platform to talk about my client, André José Hernández Romero. He has become somewhat famous as the gay makeup artist from Venezuela who was disappeared under the Trump administration. But I want to take you back to his hometown of Táchira, Venezuela, and let you know more about his story. I know, and as I was sitting here in the audience listening to so many entrepreneurs talk about their beauty brands, I couldn't stop thinking to myself, he would love to be here. I hope someday he will be here, but it requires us to keep talking about his story. It requires us to fight back around the efforts to disappear him, the efforts to erase his existence. So I'm going to take you back to André's hometown and tell you about a little boy who was growing up as a gay child in Venezuela, where it was very difficult to live his authentic self, to live his authentic life. I'm sure for many of you, you can relate to that story. For André, he found his outlet, and it was theater. He's been in a pageant theater troupe since he was 7 years old. Every year, there's a famous festival in his hometown. It's the Three Kings Festival, a Catholic tradition, where André, who later became obsessed with crowns, was in the theater troupe. He did everything. He made the costumes. He would do the makeup. he would perform in the show every single year. Eventually, he became a professional makeup artist, and he was very successful. He worked on the Miss Venezuela pageant, as you may know, is one of the biggest events that happens in Venezuela. He did makeup for local celebrities, and he eventually landed a job that seemed like a dream job, working at a state-run media station, a TV station, and he would go in and do makeup for people before they went on the air. And for him, this was amazing because he was able to live his life and to further his artistry and do exactly what Andriy always wanted to do, which was put more beauty and light into the world. Unfortunately, for Andriy, while he was there, he began to come under persecution, both because he was a gay man and also because he refused to put up social media posts for the Maduro regime, which was a requirement of continuing to work at the TV station. When he refused, he was actually followed home. He was beaten by his supervisor. He was followed home by colectivos of police officers who made him fear that he would become a political prisoner in Venezuela like so many other people he knew in his life. So Andriy made the incredible, brave decision to flee his home country, to leave his mom, who he talked to every single day, and he made it to the US-Mexico border. And what he did when he got there is so important, because in August of 2024, he did exactly what the US government was asking asylum seekers to do. He made an appointment through something called the CBP One app. He waited in Tijuana, Mexico, until his appointment came, and when he got his appointment, he went into the US. Now, there's one thing I forgot to tell you about Andriy, that Andriy, like me, and like I'm sure many of you, has tattoos. Andriy has several tattoos. Some of them are butterflies, but 2 of them are crowns. And they're on the inside of his wrists above the words Mom and Dad. That would be a fateful part of his story, because when he entered the United States, because he was a young Venezuelan man, because he was traveling on his own, because he was coming here to work in the beauty and wellness industry, but he didn't know anybody yet, he didn't have someone to receive him, and because of those tattoos, he was flagged as someone who might not go to court. So they put him in an immigration detention center in San Diego, California. That's where our team met him. While he was there, before we met him, he actually did the first part of an asylum case, which is an interview, and he passed. They said this person has a high likelihood that they will win their case. So his case was continuing on. We met him in December. We submitted his asylum application in court. We went to court with him. We got to know him even better. We learned that while he was in immigration detention, he actually came to one of his meetings one day with us, and he said, I have this 19-page paper that I asked the guards to print out for me because I wanted to show you and I want you to show the judge. And it was a business plan. It was actually for a nonprofit that he wanted to start for other kids like him that wanted to do art, that wanted to be in the art industry, but who were, unfortunately, didn't have all of the tools that they needed to be able to do that. That's the kind of person that Andriy is. We never got to show a judge that business plan. In fact, we never got to have a day in court for Andriy at all. As part of the ongoing assault of due process in the United States, Andriy's story and what has happened to him is the pinnacle of that. And we want to make sure that everybody understands that Andriy's story we know, because he was one of the few of the 240 men from Venezuela that were sent to the Secot prison in El Salvador who had a lawyer before he left. We don't know how many other Andriys there are. We don't know everyone's stories. But for Andriy, what happened is on March 6th, while we were waiting for a court hearing that was supposed to take place the next week, he was moved to a facility in South Texas. The very next day was the first time the government ever said that they believed he was part of the transnational gang Tren de Aragua. What they did is they filed something in immigration court without us knowing what was to come the next week that said these 2 tattoos, which Now that I've told you a little bit about Andriy, you can see we're actually an homage to his theater troupe that he had been in since he was 7 years old, and to his mom and dad. Those 2 tattoos meant that they believed he was a member of this gang. And less than a week later, when we went to court, Andriy didn't show up. We were desperately looking for him. This was on March 13th. The next day, we started hearing rumors that the Alien Enemies Act, an obscure law from 1798 that allows the US president to expel people if there's an invasion of the United States, was being used against Venezuelans, and that there was planes imminently leaving. We were desperately looking for Andriy. The last call he made that we know of was to his mom, and he told her, "I think they're sending me back to Venezuela." That was March 14th. By the 15th, we could no longer find him on the ICE detainee locator. I watched the planes take off as I was listening to a court hearing in DC, hoping it would be stopped. The next morning, I found myself on President Bukele's social media feed, looking at the pictures, trying to find Andriy. Today is day 86. We've had no proof of life. The last proof of life we have for Andriy are these horrific Time magazine photos that we now know depicted him, that were shown on 60 Minutes, of him having his head forcibly shaved, being stripped naked by men with AK-47s, shackled at the ankles, and crying, saying, "I'm a stylist, I'm gay." He didn't know why he was there. He didn't know where he was. Since that time, we have been able to make sure that Andriy's story is one that people are talking about around the world. We have literally received letters, emails, calls from people all over the world. His story's been featured on 60 Minutes, on Rachel Maddow, on Anderson Cooper, on all of these major platforms. I'm here today because what I think about Andriy's story is the moment that we stop talking about him, the moment that we stop talking about his story and others like him, is the moment that the Trump administration is successful in completing the disappearance of Andriy Hernandez Romero. This is not a case that sits in obscurity. I came here this morning from Los Angeles. I spent the last 2 days at an immigration detention center in downtown Los Angeles that we no longer even have access to. There are more than 200 residents of Los Angeles that have been picked up off the streets. I have watched masked agents in plain clothes push people into service elevators in the middle of federal buildings in downtown LA in the last 2 weeks. This is an all-out assault on the values that we hold as Angelenos, as Californians, as Americans. Andriy's story has struck a chord with so many people because the truth is, his story is the embodiment of, if it could happen to him, it could happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to any one of us. It's why the rule of law is so important. It's why due process is so important. We talk about, as lawyers, due process, and people might not know what we mean. But what that means at its core is that you, if the government accuses you of something, you need to be able to defend yourself. You need your day in court. You need to be able to refute those allegations, especially when the punishment could be getting sent to a place like the Secot in El Salvador, where the president and prime minister have bragged no one leaves except in a coffin. Everyone here can help us by continuing to share Andriy's story. Everyone here can continue to help us by making sure that the families in Los Angeles are not forgotten about when they are locked away, that we continue to fight for them. I know, as someone who has done this work in the immigrant rights movement for 15 years, that the only fight that we lose is the one we give up on. None of us can afford to lose this fight. It's not just about Andriy. It's not just about the men who are sitting in Secot. It's not just about what's happening on the streets in Los Angeles as I stand here. It's about the future of our democracy and the country that we want to live in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. And thank you for all the speakers who have been so powerful today. This is what happens at the Business of Beauty and with BOF. We ground ourselves in culture and we ground ourselves in what's happening now. But now we'd like to move on a little bit. Now in its second year, the Business of Beauty Global Awards is returning to the spotlight to spotlight the next generation of breakout beauty entrepreneurs. Here to help us identify the brands of tomorrow, we curated an all-star jury with leaders from L'Oreal Group, Sephora, VMG Partners, and more. Alongside myself and Imran, we had the unenviable task of selecting just a handful of winners from our crop of outstanding finalists. Now, please welcome Ali Goldstein, Head of US Acquisitions for L'Oreal Group, Carolyn Bojanowski, Sephora's Executive Vice President of Merchandising, Robin Tsai, General Partner at VMG Partners, Mariana Hewitt, co-founder of Summer Fridays, and Isamea French, makeup artist and founder of Isamea Beauty, to share with Imran what makes an emerging beauty brand stand out and what it actually takes to make a forever brand.
Okay, so we have about 10 minutes to talk about, I think we spent about 6 or 7 hours together yesterday meeting 13 incredible brands from all over the world, as far away as South Africa and Sweden. And we're really lucky to have this amazing jury because, as we were talking about last night, one of my observations, having come from the fashion industry and being kind of immersed in this community now for 3 years, is there's so much entrepreneurship in the beauty industry. Mm-hmm. There's so many brands, but that makes it so hard to stand out, right? And each of you has a very interesting, unique angle on what it takes to stand out. We have the L'Oreal Group, we have Sephora, we have an investor, we have a couple of founders. I wanted to just quickly run through with you, based on what you saw yesterday, based on what you're seeing in the market, and for all the founders in the room who are building their own businesses, what does it take to stand out? Ali, let's start with you.
Well, first, thank you for including me in this. It was really a lot of fun, and it was great to be with this group to get to know each other a bit. I think for me, what I was looking for were a couple of things. One is it really addressing a white space opportunity? Is it really differentiated? Is the offering something that we haven't seen before and can be sort of incremental to the beauty market? That was one of the key pieces that I was looking for.
Okay. Carolyn, what would you add?
So I would echo Ali. Thanks so much for including us. Awesome panel. For me, it's like a little bit of that, like the little tingle, I call it, like that little something, whether it be a unique point of view of the founder or a really cool origin story or a product that you're just like, oh shit, like this is like next level, haven't heard of anything like this before, and just thinking that, something that could actually change the industry. It sounds like a little bit trite, but it's like, this is something that could change how consumers consume beauty or how we think about the beauty space. So yeah, I kind of go to that gut.
The intuition thing, yeah. Robin, it would be cliche to say you only care about the numbers, but I could see yesterday that you're thinking a lot more than just about, return on investment. There's a more a deeper set of things that you're looking for. How would you articulate what those are?
I think it's, to sort of reiterate a sentiment from before, people have a lot of stuff at this point. So I think the way to stand out, one thing that would be important is we look to founders to be brave and to honestly be comfortable pissing some people off too. Like, you stand for something, and for that group of, and that tribe, you deeply, whatever you're actually putting out there resonates with them. It's not for everybody, and for us, that's fine. It really is more about whether or not you can actually take a stand for something, and for it to be authentic for you.
And why is that important now?
Because there is so much that is similar out there, I would say. It's hard to cut through the clutter. If all you're trying to do is anticipate trends and jump on sort of the bandwagon for what someone else has already done, I think that's honestly more formulaic, it's more financy, to be honest. And I think that what we really care about it's just the founders see something, and it's almost like they can't help themselves from putting that out in the world, and it has nothing to do, maybe not nothing, but it doesn't have to do with the numbers. It's just something that needs to be out there. They see it clearly, they know what it is, they know what it's not, and that's what we need to follow if that's something that we, a brand that we believe in.
Yeah. Okay, so Mariana and Ismael, you've actually gone and done it. You founded your own businesses, and you've taken some of the courageous, brave steps that Robin was referring to. I mean, when you were meeting our amazing finalists yesterday, what were you looking for?
I was looking for founders who really were not scared. So similar to so many of them, I didn't have a background in business. I didn't go to business school, but I knew that there was something I had to put out in the market. I knew that I was passionate about it and that I could build a team around me to really help execute that vision. There were founders yesterday who had that same hustle, they had that same mentality, and they were going to do anything it took to bring their vision out into the world, even if it seemed like the product might not work, or you had to innovate so many times, or you had to raise money to make this technology available to bring this product to market. And I think when you're a founder, you have to be scrappy, you have to be okay with people telling you no, and you have to know, okay, I really want to bring this out into the world. And we really saw that with founders yesterday, and it was so exciting to see, I was in their shoes 7 years ago, and then to see now today this next generation of founders, it's so inspiring, and it's so hard because there are so many brands out here, but I think they have really unique points of view, and I can't wait to see what this group brings, because I think these are the next brands that we're going to see really blow up in the future, and you guys did such a great job of identifying them.
Thank you. Ismael, you were stalking the brand Instagram feeds yesterday.
Yes, I was listening to everyone, by the way, but I wasn't just checking my Instagram.
No, she was, when we were talking about creative execution, and you have a background as a creative and artist, really, how is it that how do you know you've seen something special, genuinely creative?
Well, I will echo a little bit of, what these guys are saying. For me, I am, and I was yesterday, looking for that authenticity and that innovation. I feel like they're two very, very important things that kind of really create the magic. And I think, first of all, of course, you have the founder story, which is so important. And I think often, have an incredible founder story and also a very, very passionate founder does so much to carry the brand and really keep that magic alive. If you talk about sort of longevity, if you talk about community. And it's a tricky one with something like, an Instagram, because actually a lot of, when we did the research at my brand with, our digital heads, they often say, actually, it doesn't matter. People aren't looking at the account to be some kind of, incredible, MoMA-worthy mood board. Yeah. No, actually, it's really just about the community and the engagement and really understanding your audienceship and what they're after. And so I think it's a fine balance, isn't it? And it's the hardest thing for me because I just want to put gorgeous images out there and people don't care about them, apparently. But I will anyway. But, I think it's that
creativity
really.
Doesn't have to be perfectly polished, basically. It can come in a more...
Well, actually, I think now the consumer is incredibly discerning. And I think they don't fall for a lot of just really high-end finished polished things. They want the authentic experience. Experience is key. We've heard it a few times on this stage. And so I think keeping it real and true to your authentic founder roots and your community, like you guys have said and I've echoed, is the thing.
Okay. Ali, for like a big group like L'Oreal, you know, making acquisitions, I think there was one announced recently. How do you know when a brand is ready for that big step to become part? I mean, I met with your CEO in December, and he was educating me on the sprawling number of brands in the group. Like, how do you know when something is ready to be part of a group like yours?
Well, I think there's sort of the quantitative facts, right? The numbers, the sales, like the financial health of the brand. But then there's also the qualitative, and that happens through tons of conversations with the founders, with the team. You know, there's a bit of understanding the culture. So there's the hard side of it. You know, have they reached a threshold where they've taken the company to a level and now they need help to go to the next big jump? But then there's very much a piece around the softer pieces of the people, the culture of the organization. It's a bit of a marriage in a way. You know, do we fit with them? Do they fit with us? How is that all going to come together? And that comes through lots of conversations and discussion. So it's a formal process, but a very informal pieces of this big fancy process.
And given everything that's happening in the world right now,
yes.
Is that something you're still actively looking? I mean, you have M&A in your title, right?
Yeah,
so like this is your full-time thing. Like,
This is
give us a sense of the market.
I hope we're still looking, otherwise I'm out of a job. I think, you know, and I've shared this before, and you heard it from the CEO, L'Oreal is a company that's been made through years of acquisitions.
Yeah.
And so my job is to always be looking for opportunities, whether it will happen today, tomorrow, or in a year from now. And so identifying who's out there, what could be future sources of acquisitions, where's the growth going to come from? Ultimately, that is my objective, is to find pockets of growth that will complement what we already have. And that's really my job description. And there is no timeline, there is no deadline. And it's really about identifying incremental spaces based on what's happening with consumers, what's happening with retailers, that can help support, you know, the beauty market and L'Oreal at large.
Carolyn, one just last question for you. I mean, everybody wants to be in Sephora at some stage on their founder journey. You know, we heard about, you know, from the Space NK team and from Nykaa about, you know, some you know, hunting for brands. I mean, how do you know when a brand is ready for Sephora? I mean, we've all heard stories of brands that have gone into Sephora and then, you know, it's a lot, right? You know, so how do you make that judgment when a brand's ready?
Yeah, I think the magic of the merchant brand relationship at Sephora is just that. It is a marriage, it's a relationship, it's a commitment. So there's certainly not a one-size-fits-all. Every brand is different. Every brand has its own journey. And it's because of that deep relationship. So I know Mariana talked about, you know, 7 years ago, who could have predicted, you know, at that time, you know, how you would have grown and sort of the path and the journey that the brand would have taken. But I think it's because of that connection, you know, with a merchant on our team that you've had consistently the whole time, that you are just in it. You are in it together. You are figuring out the right next moves, the right next steps. And when there are hurdles, you figure out the pivots and all that good stuff. So I think it's just a testament to, you know, that deep closeness. You know, I was saying to somebody earlier, we can be a total pain in the ass, you know? But that's with love. I mean, that's, you know, relationships aren't always perfect and it's give and take and all that good stuff. But, you know, I think that's the magic of really Sephora's commitment to building brands to be successful for long-term growth.
Okay. Well, it's our second year of the Business of Beauty Global Awards, and I just wanted to thank all of you for all the time and support that you've given us. We hope that we've taken the awards program to a new level this year. I think the founders we met, I mean, maybe all the founders, can you stand up? Yeah. Honestly, we were all so blown away by all of you yesterday, and we were deliberating late into the evening. There was a lot of debate, but in a way, you really are all winners. I want to encourage all of you to meet our founders. There's 13 brands, as I said, from all over the world. There's a showcase which we've introduced this year where you can get up close and personal with their products. And if you're lucky, the founder might be there to kind of walk you through things. But they've put so much work into their businesses, and anyone who's an entrepreneur knows just how hard it is to build something from scratch. So we're so in admiration of all of you, and we really look forward to announcing the winners tomorrow evening at our farewell dinner. And thanks again to our jury. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so that brings us to the end of session 1 here at the Business of Beauty Global Forum 2025. There's lots more to come tomorrow. I want to say goodbye to all of our live stream viewers, our community watching online. It's such a pleasure to have you with us. We are hoping you're feeling energized and inspired by everything that you've learned today, and that you'll tune back in tomorrow for a full day of programming. We'll be beginning here at 10:30 a.m. in California. That's 1:30 p.m. in New York, 6:30 p.m. in London, and 7:30 p.m. Paris time. And so until then, I'm going to say farewell from all of us here in Napa Valley. Bye-bye.